Greetings, greetings. Good day, good night, wherever you are in the world. Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Just want to thank you for tuning in live, listening to the Vault. You are now tuned in to Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Just wanted to do a post today talking about the 5 lessons I've learned over 5 years in trust. And I think that this is a critical episode because a lot of people hear about the sexy topic of trust and they hear a lot of the do's and the things that you should be doing in trust. But I wanted to share from my perspective what I've learned. I was actually trained by private trustees. These trustees have over 20 to 30 years of experience working with some of the wealthiest trust managers that you can be trained by. I had a mentor, was a national trust counselor, so very, very successful in the content that this individual has been able to acquire, independently wealthy as a trustee, and as well as advising other families on trusteeship and things of that nature. But one of the lessons that I've learned over the past 5 years as a trustee, and I've developed a trustee training program at the Vault. So, me coming from a community of trustees, I developed a trust system that has trustees as well. So, not only do you learn how to deal in trust properly as a trustee, but you also come into a community of other individuals that are dealing in that way. So, we have a community working together as private trustees, learning and educating. It's a professional society of trustees working together, but a lot of the times it's a lot of families that are working together through our private family foundations, and as well through our private family trust and private business trust and all of that. So it's a family oriented environment more than anything. But one of the things that I wanted to the 5 lessons and 5 years of trust, I wanted to talk about, which was the first one is a lot of people come to trustee training, or they come to trust but they don't have a student mentality. And that's something that I think is very critical when you're looking to engage in this type of thought process. I think that it requires an individual wanting to get heavily involved with the law as a trustee. You start being more faithful to the law. They say ignorance of the law is no excuse. And the reason why I wanted to talk about the law was really because of the student mentality. I think a lot of people come towards it with a level of, I know trust already, but really they only know public trust. They don't know about private trust. And when I was introduced to trust a lot more formally through the community and through the trustees that I've been educated by, it was always come with questions. Every time we met, they would say, "Come with questions. Put them in an email." You always had questions. One of the things that I see sometimes with trustees every now and then is that they don't have any questions. It's like, well, this is a lifestyle. You should always have questions. Even to this day, I have questions. As a trustee, I have many questions for my trust mentors when I meet with them. But a lot of the times when they say, hey, come meet with me, and have the questions in an email or typed out, like, really, it's just more of a conversation. It's more like, hey, let's just talk. But it's very much so related to trusteeship, because what we do is a lifestyle. So there's always, when you haven't been born into this lifestyle, you should always be asking questions. And even if you were born into the lifestyle, you should always be asking questions as a junior trustee so you can grow into senior trusteeship status with your student mentality. And I think that that's critical. As a trustee, you want to be ferocious towards learning, because when you really step into trusteeship, and I know this might sound a little like someone say, oh, you might sound a little condescending. I think as a trustee, you put yourself in a position of being totally responsible at that point in your life, because you're caretaking for other people. And it might work. Trusteeship might actually be the best for women, but I think as a man, if a man's going to say he's going to provide and protect, then you should be wanting to be a trustee over your family estate as well. And if you understand trust, when you do your research on trust, men were the only ones that could be trustees. Women were always the beneficiaries until recent years, where the women, because men would go off to war and women would have to manage the estate. Women were allowed to be trustees, and of the actual estate itself. But for the most part, the man would take care of the estate. I just think that having a student mentality will put you to speed up your learning curve. A lot of people contact Devote and they say they want to ask questions, but it's like, did you watch every single YouTube video? I could share with you all right now. Every time I met with my mentors, I had questions. Every time I met with my mentors, I always made it a point to ask them questions. I didn't get there and just start talking. I actually asked them a bunch of questions. And some of the people that I look at their content online, I look at all of their content before I send them an email. I want to do my background. I want to do my due diligence. I want to do my research. And that's what trusteeship really makes you do. And I think that that's one of the lessons I don't see a lot of people adhere to. The second one is having good decision making skills. This is something that I'm really passionate about because over the past year, and of course this is going to change from year to year, but having good quality decision making skills puts you in a position where you're willing to cut people off, you're willing to cut business deals off, you're willing to pull out of a business deal, you're willing to make the decision for the best interest of the trust. As a trustee, you want to make the trust grow. That's your fiduciary responsibility, is to grow and protect the assets for the beneficiary. So decision making skills are critical when it comes to being a trustee of the trustee. I'm not talking about this from a beneficiary perspective. I'm talking about this literally as a trustee, because that's the most powerful position in the trust. Most people are going to tell you, oh, beneficiary, but the beneficiary only receives disbursements when the trustee says that they can. So the trustee, that's the position I'm talking about. You have to have the best or top flight decision making skills when it comes to being a trustee. Decision making skills, knowing that, okay, I'm not going to do anything in my own name. I'm going to do it all in the trust name. I think that that's so critical. Some of the best trustees that I've ever trained or come across, they immediately get rid of all their personal accounts. So they have no excuse to ever be called commingling. Those are things that I look at when I look at a good trustee is how much are you doing? How much have you taken away? How much have you literally paid attention to what I said, which is own nothing, control everything. So if I ask you as a trustee, are you doing anything in your name? They could easily say no. They never come to me. Good trustees never come to me and say, how do I get this into the trust situation? They already started every situation once they came in trustee training from the, I don't own this. This is the trust responsibility. This is the trust bank account paying for this. Because the trust bank account is paying for this, I am the trustee administering the trust. That is the mentality. Good decision making. Never doing anything that's going to compromise the trust. Never making moves without consulting as a trustee. Those things are critical. The second thing is this is why I developed trustee training, was because of, it's kind of talking about successor trustees, but you see a lot of people don't do. They're focused on just being a trustee instead of finding a successor trustee. You have to be able to find a successor trustee. You have to make it a point to, you have to find people that you can build a team around it. When you're a trustee, you have to build a team. This is something that I see, even if you come in trustee training, you're going to run into a critical problem. It's not being able to build teams. Why? You have to be able to go out and be able to find a good attorney as a trustee. You have to be able to go out and find and vet a good CPA. You have to be able to go out and find a good secretary, a good book record keeper. You're not going to do it all in a trust. You have to build a team. If you're talking about building wealth, if you're talking about building a private family office, what do you think you're going to do? You think you're going to do it all by yourself? You have to be able to build a team. And pay the team. Give the team what it needs. Working on leadership development skills. I talked to someone recently and they were like, and I don't want to get off topic here, but they were like, oh, leadership is influence. To me, leadership is finding the right people and putting them in place to actually do what they're good at. Not telling them, hey, this is what the company needs. Can you do it? No. It's actually about finding people that are that are actually good at what they're doing and putting them in position to do it. For me, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I love responding to emails, but I do love the fact that people are engaging with our company. So I make it a point to reach out. I make it a point to respond sometimes. I make it a point to get our team to respond. And so that's important. So just building teams, finding people to do the things that you want to do. Thank you, Paul Jones. I do appreciate the compliment. This is what I do. This is what I make. This is what I do. I make it a point to if you're going to be, I always talk, I did a post on Facebook the other day about being an asset or a liability. And, it's interesting that people go through these type of holidays or Christmas and stuff, and they're not acquiring assets. They're acquiring liabilities. And that's something that's very disturbing to me. And that's the next point, which is a good trustee thinks generationally. See, I'm doing this for my kids. So my kids can know that dad didn't need to take days off. Every day is a holiday. Every day is Christmas. Every day we celebrate the Lord's birthday. Or every day we're celebrating being around each other with peace and joy and happiness. Every day. So, I definitely want to say that when it comes to the lesson, one of the next lessons, this is the fourth lesson, is that you have to think generationally. I see so many people get into trusteeship and they're so focused on Bitcoin and crypto, but they haven't invested in the insurance policies to pay for those things. Insurance policies, the country was founded on insurance policies. Trusts are founded on insurance policies. It's a 500-year-old investment. 500-year-old. How can you be something that's performed for 500 years? I think sometimes, because I'm dealing with people that possibly, some of them are not, they're not born into wealth. People say, oh, I wasn't born into wealth. Well, guess what? 80% of the millionaires that are in the United States right now weren't born into it. You have to be able to think generationally, to be able to think long term, to be able to say, I'm going to push this wealth down the road 3 or 4 generations. That's a different type of mindset. So when I say, when I used to hear my trust mentor say, oh, this isn't for everybody, I know it's not for everybody, because a lot of people are not going to think generationally, and you have to think generationally as a trustee, or the trust is just going to go for 1 generation and then this done. That's it. So you have to think generationally as a trustee. And the last one is most people don't know their responsibilities clearly. They don't know if they're the trustee. They don't know if they're the grantor. They don't know the beneficiary. And this is critical, because this is why I do what I do, is because I'm going to be the one that clears the air on there's a difference between public and private trust. The average individual is educated and walking around on some public entity stuff. They're walking around with a revocable trust. They're walking around with a living trust. They're walking around with a grantor type trust. They don't understand what it is. They don't understand privacy. They don't understand trusteeship. They're trying to be a beneficiary. Why? Because they've been in the public their whole life. They've never had to be responsible for taxes, so they give it to their CPA. As a trustee, you fill out the 1041. It's called the fiduciary tax form. Whatever you write on that tax form is supposed to be accurate. The CPA can't have access to your books. Why? Because the CPA is not a trustee in the trust. So how would they have access to the books? The trustee is the only person that has access to the books, not the CPA. The CPA will have to come in to actually see things as a trustee, not just come in as a CPA. Oh, I'm the CPA. I'm going to look at all the books. Why? It's private. A CPA is public. It's called certified public accounting. They just need to be, they're the person that just says, oh, okay, we're sending this to the public accounting agency. See, the average individual doesn't understand the difference between public and private. So that's why understanding your responsibility as a private trustee is so critical. Your responsibilities. What are your responsibilities? You're responsible for growing, protecting the assets for the beneficiary. It's not for you as the trustee. And that's the issue, is most people want to be beneficiaries, so they don't understand their responsibility. If you want to be a beneficiary, that means you're going to be waiting to receive a disbursement whenever you feel like it. But if you want to use the benefits of the trust and still grow the assets, then that's trusteeship. If you want to benefit from the company vehicle, you got to go get the money so the vehicle can be paid for. Clearly, the trust can't drive the company vehicle, but you can enjoy a Beamer. You can enjoy a Maserati. You can enjoy those things as a trustee, because the trust, it needs to have a company vehicle. It needs to have a company residence, but you have to be able to grow the assets of the trust. That comes in a capital raising. So when people contact the vote and they say, oh, well, I don't have the money. Well, what do you think your job is as a trustee? To go out and find how to make money for the trust. Not to sit there and say, well, I don't know how to get money. Well, we'll see how long that trust is around, for one generation to the next, or how long it's going to grow. See, these entities are powerful. These private contracts are powerful. This is why the public's not educated on them. It's because they're private. It's because they're powerful. They want to give people watered down things and tell them a 80% failure rate in the public. So you can retire at 65 and live off of 1/3 of what you were living on in the first place. So those are some of the lessons that I've learned over the past 5 years in trusteeship. And I just encourage you all to make it a point to A, have a student mentality. B, improve your decision-making skills. 3, focus on building a team. Come in it with a team mentality. When I first started out at Trust, I started out with 2 other people. I didn't start out with my particular family members. I started out with 2 other people. I said, you know what? I'm not going to do this by myself because this looks like a mammoth. But guess what? I'm going to bring 2 other people on with me. And we'll deal with it from that point forward. Did it work out? No, it's neither here nor there did it work out. What the point is that I impacted two other people's lives to know the same exact thing that I knew, which was trusteeship, to understand private trust, but from the private community that I found out. You got to build a team. And then thinking generationally, I always thought long term. I always thought about my children, but now you have to think about your kids' kids. See, the average individual, they don't want to think about 100 years out. They're trying to think about the next Christmas. And then knowing your responsibilities as a man, as a woman, as a trustee, that's critical. You got to know those things. So thank you, Zandra, for tuning in live. Does the team members have to be private status? When you say private status, does that like I think I answered that question, which is that they're either going to be trustees or they're not going to be trustees. If they're not trustees, then they're not going to have access to certain information inside of the trust because there's a non-disclosure agreement. And even if they're open to seeing certain aspects, there's a non-disclosure agreement for them to only see that aspect of what they're looking at. So it's just knowing their responsibility. What's their responsibility? Their responsibility is to do a job. You have to make sure that they do it. Nothing more, nothing less. So thank you all for tuning in live on, if you're live, for the holiday. I appreciate that. And as well, listening to replay. And I thank you all for sharing with your friends and family, because this is about building a team. This is about building a stronger community. You build a stronger community when you have educated people. That's the issue in America is are people going to be educated? I have people contacting us from international countries all the time, and they're focused on building their communities internationally. The way you build a strong community is by being educated. And when you're not privy to a certain type of education, clearly there's going to be a fall off of wealth being passed on from one generation or money being passed on from one generation to the next, period. So thanks, Trey Stone, for tuning in live. Appreciate you all. Thank you all. It's been a great year. Thanks, Angela. Thank you all so much. And like I say, feel free to share it with your friends and family. Get them engaged in this information so you can have a wealth building conversation. And if they're not going to be able to have that wealth building conversation, I told you a good decision is to say, you know what? This is not the person that's going to help me make wealth generation decisions. I need to be around people that are going to have to make wealth generation decisions. And you're going to have to make the decision to invest in your private education so you can engage with the proper people. You have to make those decisions for your family and for yourself and for the benefit of the trust and the benefit of the beneficiaries. That's a decision-making thing. So I encourage you all to make those decisions. So thank you all for tuning in live. Appreciate you all listening to replay and sharing. I look forward to hearing from you all. I will be doing another episode again tomorrow. It don't stop. It's every day throughout December, and that's what we do. So thank you all so much, and peace and blessings, and talk to you soon.